Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2022-23 season. My name is Dan and today it is Tuesday, so we're going to do an episode of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid, this time for Game Week 4. In a game week where everyone is just going crazy for transfers, panicking for transfers. So yeah, hopefully this should be a pretty good one. If you do enjoy what you see today, please do leave a like. Please do subscribe as well if you're new around here. Thank you, by the way, for 150,000 subscribers. We hit that today. So yeah, massive thanks to you guys for that one. But it's time to explain the rules of Buy, Sell, Keep, Avoid. Alright guys, so buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players that you might be thinking about removing. I think you should keep them. And avoids are players that are pretty hyped up right now. I think they should be potentially avoided, actually, to be honest. So yeah, we're going to go through all four categories. Again, we're just trying to identify the right players to go for, the wrong players to go for, the right bandwagons to follow in terms of transfers, both in and out. And hopefully we'll nail it. But you never know, you never know. Let's do some buys first. Okay, so our first buy today is going to be RODRIGO from Leeds. I mean, we kind of rated him pretty highly over the last couple of weeks, haven't we? We've been keeping a close eye on him, but we were just worried about that Chelsea fixture. We thought, you know, maybe we can wait until after the Chelsea fixture. Maybe we can even wait until after the Brighton fixture in Game Week 4. But as it turns out, no, we couldn't wait at all. He already smashed it against Chelsea. He did really well again. Like, he's just playing so well. He's playing such good football at the moment. And not only is he getting FPL points, scoring goals, getting assists, but his underlying stats are backing his performances up. His, you know, when you watch him play, that's being backed up as well. Like, you can tell that he's just in the form of his life. And he's just really like a brand new player, really, isn't he, this season? He's in such good form. And that confidence breeds confidence. And when a player is in this good form, it doesn't really matter what fixture they face, what opposition they face, because particularly with attackers, it is often best to just prioritize the form of the player over the fixtures, because a player in good goal scoring form will score against anyone, and we've kind of seen that already. So long live Rodrigo, viva la Rodrigo. 6.3 million midfielder as I speak, but you know, he can be 6.5 by the end of the week if you guys don't move too soon. So yeah, definitely would be my #1 transfer target of the week. I'm not prepared to wait for much longer for Rodrigo. It's time to get him in our teams ready for Game Week 4. PERIŠIĆ is another player I think we should be looking at buying. I know a few of you guys are going to be in the market for a new defender, just because last game week in particular, maybe threw people off a little bit, maybe kind of made people think, yeah, I hate my defenders that I have in my FPL team right now, which is fair enough. So if we are going to go for another defender, why not just go for the premium defender that scored the most points last week, because that's how FPL works, right? But no, in all seriousness, guys, PERIŠIČ, we always knew that this was going to be a phenomenal FPL asset. It was just a case of when is he going to get his game time, when is he going to be ready to play, and hopefully you guys who owned him in Game Week 1 and Game Week 2 didn't give up on him when it came to Game Week 3, because, you know, we always knew there was a player here. We were just waiting for him to play. But now he's playing. Now he's starting games. We've already seen him get off the mark with his first 10-point plus haul of the season. And we know there's going to be a few more, judging by the way he's played. You know, he's played something like, I think it's 111 minutes so far this season. He's already generated 0.94 expected goals, 5 key passes, and, you know, not taking any shots yet, but you know that he's in those dangerous positions in order to take those shots. So, look, he looks good. He looks good. He got 2 assists already in just, you know, not even 2 games worth of football. It's just signs of this Conte system. PERIŠIČ playing super high up the pitch, taking corners as well, which is good to see with his weak foot. What a flex that is, by the way. And we've got some good fixtures coming up. Nottingham Forest away, Fulham at home there as well. Even that West Ham United fixture in Game Week 5 might not be too bad, because West Ham are not exactly showing the best form in the world at the moment. So we've got some good fixtures here. Do expect a little bit of rotations from PERIŠIČ, but if you're happy to take the odd 1-pointer, I mean, for example, the fixture schedule gets a little bit congested. Maybe there might be a rotation against West Ham, and maybe he plays against Man City but blanks against Man City. You're probably looking at a total of what? 1, 2, 3 points across the Game Week 5 and Game Week 7 fixtures. But in the Game Week 4 and the Game Week 6 fixtures, you might get a 10-pointer in each of them. So as long as you're prepared to hold PERIŠIČ in the low points as well as the high points, then I think you'll be absolutely fine with him. So just have a little bit of patience with him if you are going to own him. Don't give up on him if he gets rested or rotated, because he will. But just know that in those good fixtures, when he is playing and he is starting, he really has the potential to score a 10-pointer plus every single time he starts a game, which is just an incredible thing to have for a 5.5 million defender. Absolute buy. Alright, there comes a point in every man's life where he has to admit he was wrong and cry. And that's exactly what I've been doing this weekend. No, Saka is just unfortunately just showing that he's just not been the one. He's just not been a good use of 8 million, 7.9 million now, as he has had a price drop already. He's just not, performing in the way. It's not his performances are bad necessarily, but the players around him are just playing so well. He hasn't really got out of the blocks quite yet. He's not started firing yet, which is fine. His underlying stats, he's not really taken enough shots in these dangerous positions. He's creating a little bit. He probably should have got at least an assist by now. Well, I suppose he did get one assist, but maybe he could have got a little bit more than that, other than the own goal assist in game week 1. But it's just not really worth it. When you're kind of looking at some of the other Arsenal assets, we look at Martinelli at, what is he, 6.3, 6.4 now. We look at Gabriel Jesus at a similar price to Saka. We look at some of the defensive options. Arsenal have been very good defensively, and they have some good fixtures from a defensive point of view coming up as well. It's kind of like, do we have a place for Saka in our FPL teams if he's not going to be at the top of his game? Probably not, really. And even if you sold Saka and downgraded him to Martinelli, and even if Saka did outscore Martinelli, which is totally something that could happen, let's be honest, and, knowing the luck of FPL, as soon as you sell Saka, that's the week he starts firing. But even if Saka does outscore Martinelli, you've saved 1.5 million by making the downgrade, or, going for a different player, going for a Rodrigo. You save 1.5 million, and you can use that money so well in the rest of your team. You can use that money to upgrade one of your midfielders. I know a lot of people are on those super cheap midfielders and kind of want to move up to the mid-price midfielders. How useful is that 1.5 million going to be for upgrading? So useful that it arguably doesn't even matter if Saka scores slightly more than Martinelli over the course of the next 5 game weeks, for example. So yeah, that's all I would say on that one. It's time to sell Saka. It's probably time to sell all of the 8 million-ish midfielders. They've all underperformed, and I don't feel like we need a slot for them anymore. I did think that we probably just need to have an 8 million-ish midfielder just in case we wanted to move between them, but no, definitely not now. The only one that's really showing any promise is Luis Diaz. All of the other 8 million midfielders are pretty much mudded right now. So move to those like 6 to 7 million midfielders and bin off players like Saka, unfortunately. All right, Neto is our next sell. I think we've got to remove him at this point. Wolves still just being Wolves and not scoring goals. That's kind of what they do at this point. Yeah, not the greatest start for them, despite having some pretty good fixtures. Next fixture is Newcastle, which we know, aside from the freak game week 3, which I don't think anyone wants to talk about anymore. Apart from that, Newcastle are one of the better defences in, the Premier League in world football over the last 6 months or so. So yeah, I would say that the game week 4 is a good jumping off point for Neto. When it comes to game week 5 and 6 against Bournemouth and Southampton, it's going to be very difficult to sell Neto at that point. I also do want to note that it's been kind of surprising that Jimenez has come back to, fitness a lot quicker than expected. Same with Adama Traore, and also the signing of Guedes, and the fact that Neto is perhaps a little bit unsettled, rumoured to be linked with some other clubs. We won't talk about that too much, but it does seem like there is potential for Neto to be not just substituted off early, because that's already started to happen, but potentially rotated with some of his teammates, because he hasn't put in those real top quality performances that we know he's capable of yet. So is he going to potentially, again, keep being subbed off at 60, 70 minutes? Is he going to find himself the odd rotation? Is he going to be leaving the club entirely? And if he does, he's going to take a while to settle into whatever club he moves to before he starts getting minutes again. It just seems like a really dangerous player to own right now. And I think, like I say, particularly if you're able to free up budget elsewhere, there's just so many really nice sort of 5.5 to 7 million midfielders that we all really want to get in on right now, and Neto is not one of them. So the opportunity cost of keeping Neto could actually be quite significant. On to some keeps. We've got Reece James. A lot of people selling Reece James. I was kind of surprised to see that. I can kind of understand why, because obviously, some of our defenders, a lot of our defenders scored really, really poorly. All of the expensive defenders failed in game week 3, but we have to remember that's because there was shock results. And you can say, oh yeah, well, these shock results, they could happen again. Of course they could, but I mean, if you're just saying that Chelsea are going to concede 3 goals a game, so is City, and Liverpool are going to concede 2 goals a game, whatever. If you really think that's going to continue, then why don't you put a bet on that those players will those teams will get relegated, or those teams will concede 100+ goals this season, because that's what you're saying, basically. It's not going to happen. Odds over a long period of time, statistics are, you know, going back on data. Everything works out over a long period of time. That's the whole idea of the Premier League, that over the course of the whole season, everything will balance out in the end. You are going to have these anomaly weeks, these random strange weeks that don't quite go to plan, if you like, but that's not necessarily an indication that that's going to keep happening. So I don't think our premium defenders are just going to concede loads of goals every week. I'm not saying, you know, we have to have loads of premium defenders. I don't think we do, but I don't want us to write off the value of them completely, particularly a player like Reece James. I know Chelsea haven't been great defensively, but when you're going for a player like Reece James, are you looking for a clean sheet primarily? Of course, the clean sheets are really nice, but you're looking for a player to go in there and score some goals and get some assists. And James has already proven when he's playing in that right wing-back position that he's fully capable of that. Now, in that Leeds game, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I don't think quite did the job that was hoped for in that right wing-back position. So I feel like James at some point has to move back into that right wing-back position. I know people will say, well, Koulibaly is now suspended, so maybe that's going to impact that. Probably not. I think that brings Cucurella into the left centre-back position. Chilwell comes on in the left wing-back position. And as for Reece James, maybe, I mean, you would really hope by now that Chelsea have kind of realised they need Reece James to play at right wing-back, because that is when Chelsea seem to be thriving, when James is playing in that position. And if he is playing in that position, he's going to get you FPL points. He's going to get you attacking returns, particularly in games against these weaker defences like Leicester, like Southampton. I mean, I've got Leicester and West Ham as, you know, grey fixtures on screen right now, but they're both home games and they're both teams that are struggling at the beginning of this season. So overall, what I'm saying is Reece James, yes, Chelsea still might not be quite there defensively, but his underlying stats are insane. He looks like the best Chelsea asset to go for right now. You know, if you want any attacking returns, I wouldn't, you know, James, despite the fact he's a defender, despite the fact he's playing centre-back for most of the time so far this season, is still the best attacking asset statistically so far this season. So much to like about James. I don't think it's quite time to give up on him yet. And, yeah, let's see what he can get over the next couple of games. Because I think if he goes to that right wing-back position, we've got a haul coming. We've got 10-point pluses, you know, a couple of them right on the horizon. They're on their way, guys. I can feel it. And in the keep section as well, we have got ALEXANDER-ARNOLD, who is still a keep. I mean, sell him at your own risk. Like I say, I'm not saying that we have to have a defence full of expensive defenders necessarily, but Trent Alexander-Arnold, I'm not prepared to write him off as an FPL asset yet. I know people often just play FPL like, who do they think are good players or not, and people will say, well, Trent is not a very good defender. Fair enough if that's what you have as an opinion, but whether Trent individually is good at defending is completely really irrelevant in terms of FPL. It's more about the defence as a whole, and also about the player, how many attacking returns they can get, and that's how you look at your individual defenders. Otherwise, you may as well get a Van Dijk or a Matip or whoever else. But yeah, Alexander-Arnold, he will get you returns. Like, he's been so unlucky not to get any assists so far this season. He is creating so much. You know, even in that game against Manchester United, he still created a couple of chances that could have potentially ended up with goals. It didn't happen, but you know, it doesn't happen every week. You know, everything doesn't work out perfectly every single week. Now, I do agree that Liverpool defensively have not looked themselves recently. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Liverpool have a great defence right now, because they don't. That's the simple fact. But what my argument that I would put forward to is we've got Bournemouth next. Bournemouth at home next. Now, fair enough, you can say, oh, Liverpool players too expensive, yeah, blah, 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 blah. Unless you're going to reinvest the money elsewhere, is it really worth downgrading Trent Alexander-Arnold? Because who are you going to downgrade him to? If you had a Luca Digne or a Matty Cash, you know, Aston Villa's defence is pretty shambolic at the moment. Well, I would say more shambolic than Liverpool's right now. If you had one of those players, would you be playing them against Bournemouth at home? Yeah, you probably would. So why wouldn't you play a Trent Alexander-Arnold? If you had a Crystal Palace defender, or a, you know, even like, if you like a Nico Williams or a Nathan Patterson, 4 million defenders. If you had one of those and they were playing Bournemouth at home, you would probably consider playing them. So just because you're angry at Liverpool, you're angry at the Liverpool assets, the Liverpool defenders, does that make them suddenly bad picks against Bournemouth at home? If you would play mid-table players against Bournemouth at home, why would you not play your Liverpool players against Bournemouth at home? So, fair enough if you want to move these Liverpool players on after this game, but I would certainly give them one more game in this incredible fixture. And if it still looks tragic, even in a game like this, you know, a game against a team that is predicted by a lot of people to finish literally bottom of the Premier League, then fair enough. But it seems a bit of a crazy game to sell like a player who is consistently, for years and years, been one of the best, if not the best, particularly from a value point of view, FPL asset for years, and you're going to sell him when he's about to play at home against what is probably considered the weakest team in the league. Make it make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. There's no way I would sell Trent. Okay, on to some avoids. We've got Odegaard. I have to admit to you guys, avoids was kind of hard this week because a lot of the popular transfers are kind of like, I can kind of understand why people would transfer that in. So I've kind of tried to pick players that I wouldn't bring in personally, and Odegaard would certainly top that list. I know this is going to be controversial. I know people are not going to like me saying this, and I know a lot of people would have already knee-jerked in Odegaard and will be absolutely, you know, very upset to hear anything bad said about him because, you know, they kind of have to double down on this one now. But Odegaard is certainly not a player I would ever consider bringing in FPL. Yes, he had a fantastic game week 3. There's no doubt about that. But it was an anomaly week in so many ways. And one of the anomalies was Odegaard's performances. In game week 1 and 2, you know, Odegaard got something like 0.07 expected goals across 2 games. In that same period, even across 3 games, you know, people talk about, okay, maybe Odegaard doesn't shoot a lot. And he doesn't shoot a lot. Yes, he took a couple of decent shots. I mean, still 0.69 goals is not sustainable for getting 2 goals. You're not going to get 2 goals per that XG, and it was really 0.62 XG in game week 3 where he got 2 goals. Not sustainable. But people say, oh, well, you know, Odegaard is really creative. He creates a lot of chances. He creates a lot in the team. He creates, you know, he creates a lot of space. He makes a lot of good passes during a game, but he doesn't create a lot of chances that lead directly to goal scoring opportunities. And that's backed up by the fact that he's only had 1 key pass. So only one pass has led to a shot so far this season in 3 games. That's not very much. Odegaard, fantastic player, fantastic creator, but is he ripe for FPL at 6.4 million? I don't think he is. If he was a little bit cheaper, if he was cheaper than Martinelli, if he was cheaper than some of the other guys, then maybe you would consider him, but he's just not going to get you enough FPL points. And I would not let one game, you know, in however long he's been at Arsenal, if you include the loan spell, quite a long time now, we can see that he is a great player, but he's not great for fantasy Premier League points, and that will be backed up in future games. And remember, guys, again, the last game it was against Nottingham Forest, it was against Bournemouth. You know, Bournemouth, the weakest team in the league, probably. Maybe Nottingham Forest considered around there as well. Maybe, not sure, but yeah, Bournemouth. If you consider them the weakest team in the league, he had an anomaly game against them, and now he's playing well, every team is slightly more difficult than that, right? And he's probably going to go back to his normal, you know, playing fantastically, not shooting a lot, not creating a lot, to a direct goal-scoring opportunities, and that's the key there, really, direct goal-scoring opportunities. So, yeah, I know a lot of people are going to disagree. I would love to hear the basis. I would imagine that if you really do like Odegaard and you are predicting him, it has to be speculative at this point. It has to be because you're predicting something's going to change, because historically, we've seen a real consistency in the way Odegaard relates to FPL points, and there's not much of a relation there. And our final avoid, again, this is not a very good avoid really, so I'll keep it brief. But I've gone for Dean Henderson in this one, just because I know a lot of people are either selling Mendy because he made a mistake. Not sure I agree with selling Mendy, to be honest, but I mean, you do you, boo. But also people are trying to get away from the double Leicester goalkeeping situation. I know a lot of people are regretting going for 2 Leicester goalkeepers, and they're looking for that new goalkeeper to go for. I would say that Dean Henderson is not the player I would go for, just because Nottingham Forest have just been so poor defensively. I know he's making a couple of saves, but in terms of expected goals conceded, Nottingham Forest sit right at the bottom of the table after 3 games. They are conceding just so many chances. They really are, and they're going to concede a lot of goals. And that's despite the fact that their opening 3 fixtures weren't too bad, to be honest. They were three overall. The 3 first fixtures, they weren't like super difficult or anything like that. But yeah, it's tough. It is tough. I would just say that the amount of chances that he's conceding is just, there's not going to be many clean sheets involved. And I know people just look at FPL points and they'll see, oh, he got a lot of points in game week 2. He saved a penalty, and penalty saves is a terrible way to judge how well a goalkeeper will do points-wise in the future. Penalty saves pretty much happen at random to our teams, to our goalkeepers, and it's very difficult to predict them. And that penalty save is absolutely no indication that he's going to keep saving penalties or even keep conceding penalties, to be honest. So yeah, Henderson, avoid. If I was going to go to a goalkeeper right now, I'd probably go for Sanchez at the same price. Maybe Raya as well, potentially there as well. Those are my probably 2 top goalkeeper picks, and you get them for the same price as a Henderson anyway. And plus, look at those underlying stats for the opening 3 games. I mean, he's not even taken a single shot so far this season. So there we go. Quick summary, guys, and this time I have actually got the graphic on screen correct. I just want you guys to just not panic too much and don't use last game week's points to define your season. Don't use them to define your decision making. Try and look over the course of 3 games. We've had 3 games worth of data now, not just one, so don't focus too much on one. We have anomaly game weeks sometimes in FPL. It's a shame that this one's happened so early in the season where we are more prone to overreaction, but later on in the season we'll probably have another 1 or 2 game weeks like this where a lot of things just seem to happen that we didn't expect. Teams will concede goals. Random players will score more goals than you expect. It happens sometimes. Football is a crazy game, and it's just important in FPL that you don't overreact to these anomaly game weeks too much. So that would be the biggest piece of advice I would give to you guys. No problem with reshaping your team if you think things are genuinely going wrong, but don't use points alone from an individual game week to make FPL decisions. That's all I would say on that one. And that's the end of the video, guys. Don't forget, all of the stats provided in today's video were provided by Fantasy Football Hub. If you want to go check out their Opta stats, where you can look at all kinds of different stats, from defensive to clean sheets to expected goals, non-penalty expected goals, and all kinds of other really in-depth, really helpful Fantasy Football stats. You can go check out the link in the description to get that, get access to that Opta stats tool. I couldn't live without it. I think it's kind of essential if you really want to play FPL at a high level. You kind of have to have these kind of tools in your locker, I suppose. Don't forget to like the video if you haven't done already. Please do subscribe as well. That would be really appreciated. And I will see you tomorrow for an 100 experts video. So thank you very much for watching once again, and I'll see you later, mates. Bye-bye.